This is a raw sheep's fleece. It was being given away and I decided to say yes to it. I'm going to make something great from it, but it's not my first preference. Not just this breed, not just this fleece, but wool is not my first preference. I'm a spinner, I'm a knitter, and I don't like wool. When I was offered this fleece, it gave me pause before I decided to take it. That's because I have both personal and ethical concerns about wool. I've thought about making this video before and shied away from it, but receiving this fleece has made me conscious again of why I don't typically work with wool, and today I wanted to share those reasons with you. Hi everyone, and welcome back to Knit Cat Paddywhack. I'm Kat and I share videos about everything knitting, and today I want to talk about wool. Knitters knit with wool, right? Well, not always. I almost never do. For me, it's partly personal preference, partly a conscious ethical choice to avoid using wool. And I know that that might seem strange, especially because I'm all about knitting and wool and knitting go hand in hand. I cover some of the points that I'm going to talk about today in a blog post that I wrote way back in 2011. That blog post is called Moral Fibre, and I thought that was the best blog title at the time, and I will link that below. But for today, here are my reasons why I don't like wool. It's itchy to wear. This is a personal choice for me, of course. I just find it uncomfortable and a little bit irritating. My sister is actually quite irritated by wool, and I think I'm similar but just a bit less severe. I do own a few wool garments, like my favourite jacket, but it can't be touching my skin around my neck. So whenever I wear it, I have to wear a scarf with it, and my scarves are always either cotton or acrylic. I don't find wool to be as pleasant to knit with as another fibre like a cellulose fibre. Obviously this is another personal opinion of mine, but when I knit I like to have a fibre that feels nice under my fingers, and I don't really find that with wool, maybe because I find it slightly itchy. I don't exclusively knit with cellulose fibres, but I often do, and some fibres that I do really like knitting with for their feel are cotton and bamboo. Wool usually isn't machine washable. Wool, generally speaking, can't just be chucked into the washing machine and washed, especially not on warm or hot. That's because it fells. It shrinks and it mats down and it becomes a completely different garment to what it was before it went through the wash. For my hand knits, I usually will hand wash them, but it is nice to know that if I accidentally put them through a warm or hot wash, that they'll be okay. I would get nervous with a normal wool garment that I might accidentally put it through the wash and ruin or damage it. You can of course get superwash wool, which is chemically treated to not felt, and that of course does solve the problem. I just had a look through my stash and I do have a couple of balls of wool or wool blend yarns. This hand spun here is absolutely beautiful. It was given to me by a friend of mine just after I had my first baby, so that I could knit something for her, and she is 3 and I still haven't. I plan to one day, but when I do make something out of this, it will probably be a hat or something that I'm unlikely to accidentally chuck through the wash. My last and most significant concern about wool is the potential for animal cruelty. And I've saved this one for last, and it's a pretty controversial one, especially in Australia where I live. Australia is a country riding on a sheep's back, as the expression goes. I'm from a regional area and my parents are actually rural retailers supplying people who own sheep. So I don't mean any disrespect to sheep farmers with what I'm about to say, but I do have some qualms about the way that sheep are bred and raised in Australia for wool. And here is my biggest reason why I avoid using wool most of the time. So the main issue is mulesing and the reasons why we mule. So mulesing is a common procedure done on sheep in Australia. It's where a layer of skin is cut out from around the sheep's breech area. So around its bottom, a crescent shape is cut out, leaving the exposed flesh to heal into a scar. And on the scar tissue no wool will grow, and the skin is also smooth, and this is usually done without anaesthetic. This is often done on merino sheep who have been bred to be very wrinkly to increase the yield of wool. Now, mulesing is done for a very respectable and important reason, and that is to prevent something called fly strike, which sheep are prone to in warm places like Australia. So fly strike is, as I understand it, when fly larvae, maggots, feed off the skin of a sheep. It's a horrible condition, and the wrinkles on a sheep's skin are particularly prone to fly strike. Sheep also have their tails docked in Australia, usually without anaesthetic, for the same reason, to prevent fly strike. And as I understand it, around the breech area of a sheep is an area that is particularly wrinkly and so particularly prone to fly strike. So mulesing does prevent fly strike in the breech area, but it doesn't wipe it out completely. Sheep can get fly strike on other parts of their body. Now, this is a tricky one because, like I say, mulesing is done for a very important reason, and it's done to protect the sheep. However, I have several problems with it. One of them is the pain caused to the sheep. So, like I say, it's usually done without anaesthetic. I would be much more okay with it if sheep were given anaesthesia for the procedure and analgesia or anaesthetic for their recovery. But as it is now, most sheep don't receive any of that, and they are sent back out into the fields to recover, which surely must take a long time for them to heal. Due to public outcry about mulesing, several alternatives have been more commonly used, and some of them I like, some of them I like less. Alternatives include using insecticides to prevent fly strike, using a clip on the skin, which works in a similar way to rings which are used to castrate lambs. The alternative that I am most excited about is breeding merino sheep, which are less wrinkly. This is really the heart of my issue with mulesing. We've modified these sheep through breeding to make them yield more, to help us profit more from them, but it has also made them vulnerable to fly strike. Now, I am okay with breeding animals for our own use. I am a vegetarian, I am not a vegan, and I do think that there is a respectable way to use animals. But we have bred these sheep on purpose, and it has made them more prone to fly strike. It reminds me of those photos that were going around the internet a while ago of a dog breed 100 years ago and then the same breed today, and showing the differences in how we've bred them to have these features that then make them more prone to health concerns just for our own enjoyment. I guess what I'm trying to say is we need to be responsible about how we breed animals, and I think that we may have bred merino sheep irresponsibly. I would rather there be no need to mule a sheep. The RSPCA states, "The RSPCA believes that it is unacceptable to continue to breed sheep that are susceptible to fly strike and therefore require an ongoing need for mulesing or other breech modification procedures to manage fly strike risk." And basically, I agree with the RSPCA. We need to think about the decisions of the people who came before us in breeding these animals and consider breeding them such that we don't need to modify their bodies in such a way. And if we got to a place where mulesing didn't have to happen, then I would be very happy and much happier to use wool. So mulesing is my biggest problem with wool, and I have bought wool for my own use from companies that specifically say that they don't use the wool from mules' sheep. And thankfully for me, I live in Tasmania, where mulesing is less common because it is cooler here and therefore sheep are less likely to get fly strike. And that is one reason why I decided to accept this fleece. It is unlikely to be from a mule sheep, and based on its appearance, I don't think it's from a merino sheep at all. And I expect it probably came from a sheep that wasn't being kept for its wool, which is why it was given away to a person who then gave it away to me. And I also wasn't paying money for the fleece, so I wasn't supporting an industry that I have concerns about. I believe that as crafters we have a responsibility to do what we love consciously and ethically, and to think about where our fibre comes from. So that is why, after much thought, I decided to make this video today, just to highlight some of the ethical concerns I have with using wool. Thank you for watching. Bye.